Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, Texas. DFW is the home of American Airlines and the C.R. Smith Museum. Located next to the American Flight Academy, the museum, named for legendary American Chairman C.R. Smith, is one of the only museums in the world dedicated solely to commercial aviation. Since its opening in 1993 until February of 1999, the museum's 70mm giant screen theater was home to Dream of Flight, a 14-minute 70mm film.
It begins with a dream, and it reaches deep inside you till it finds a way to become reality.
The Spirit of America was created to replace Dream of Flight. Multi-Image Productions, producers of the first film, got the assignment again.
Capture it and do it in the right way, we will have captured what is the spirit of America. Because the spirit of America.
The challenge for the production team is to make a fresh new film, but tell essentially the same story. The team starts off with concepts and a list of new locations and scenes to be included.
The tug is pulling away.
Writer-director Fred Ashman is crafting a script that will preserve the spirit of the first film while providing new, exciting scenes. The ideas became an outline, then a working script. Locations around the world were scouted, including England, Europe, and South America. It's decided that something with spectacular visual impact is needed. And while the story needs to be changed, history can't exactly be rewritten. To make history come to life, however, it's decided to find an old, 4-engine propeller-driven DC-6, polish it, paint it, and fly it in formation with 2 modern jets. The hunt for the DC-6 with an owner willing to let it be repainted, polished, and taken out of regular service for 2 weeks led first to Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
This DC-6, November 614 Charlie Alpha, is going to be lucky enough to portray a DC-6 from American Airlines in the golden years of piston travel in the 1950s. We're going to polish it all up, put a paint job on it for American Airlines, and do some really neat shots with it, we think.
All was well until it was time to send the DC-6 to Tulsa for its makeover. Severe corrosion was found in a main spar, which would ground this DC-6 permanently. The hunt was on again and finally ended in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. The shiny DC-6 you see here was hard at work flying car parts to factories in Mexico until John Conley and his American Airlines team in Tulsa made it look brand new. In the meantime, development was started for a camera which can get the shots that director Ashman blocked for the aerial sequences. Until this film, there was no good way to shoot large format 70mm film looking back at an airplane. A 70mm snorkel camera shooting through the belly of a specially modified Learjet had to be created. Academy Award-winning designer, engineer Bob Netman, was called in to build the new system.
It's a lens that is actually mounted between the floor and the belly of the Learjet. And we have a method of tilting that image so it looks straight ahead, but the camera's looking down, but we're tilted so we can look straight ahead and rotate 360, and we'll have a little bit of tilt.
This will be the first test of the Imax system through the belly mount of the Learjet. And we're going to fly against another airplane so they can work with it, the framing, and it'll give us a chance to work with the pan and tilt modes and see how it works.
Director Ashman is qualified to fly as co-pilot.
We're going to do a shot of the Hollywood sign. That'll be just the nose camera, pretty much. And then the other shot is the air-to-air of the American Eagle plane.
Vibration problems with the all-new design would plague the engineers throughout the shoot. But when it works, the pictures are wonderful. The sandbags on the mount help dampen the vibration. Some of the early test shots were made with this Saab 340. We'll see more of the aerial sequences later. With the planning process complete, production begins. The Miami airport is chosen for several scenes. This scene calls for a Super 80 jet, lots of people on the ramp, and a rainstorm. The team tackles the tarmac at Miami International.
It's 2 o'clock in Miami, 2 o'clock in the morning in Miami on a Friday night, and we have about 55 people out here on the ramp at the Miami airport working on this rain scene. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty hot and it's pretty muggy, and we're only making it muggier by making it rain everywhere.
Working with these huge rain towers can be difficult and dangerous. The lights are big and hot. If water hits them directly, they could explode. In this scene, a gate agent runs with a late bag while the ground crew holds the MD-80 aircraft. Because of the giant screen, attention to detail was critical.
We've got about 8 ramp people, which we had to get the proper uniforms for, and we've got a couple other American Airlines people here checking out procedures, making sure that they've got the right attire on, that they're doing everything correctly.
Okay, roll camera.
Finally, after 12 hours of setup and shooting, the crew gets the shot.
Brandon, set up for the next one.
Okay.
Okay, we got it. That's beautiful. You can release it.
Okay, so
The next morning, the team sets up to film the Miami Admirals Club. The crew now works against a time limit. The sun will be at the correct angle for the shot from only 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning. Actors go through makeup while the crew sets up. Then the scene is blocked and rehearsed. All the American Airlines people are real employees on loan to the film, but all the passengers are actors. A complex shot like this typically takes several hours to prepare for what will be a 10-second sequence in the film.
We got the cowboy hat and all that. That's more of a background thing. The east meets west scene is going to be strong with the Arab scene there.
Okay, so we'll add a chair here then.
Yeah, add a chair, and let's block this scene here.
Stand by for rehearsal. Open tram, here comes.
Let me get back to Eduardo right now.
Señor Fernández, cerramos el negocio en Argentina. Perfecto.
The crew now moves from the quiet Admirals Club to the very active Terminal A at Miami International.
Really, my responsibility now is to get the shots blocked so that they work in the big screen format. And second, then, is to work with the actors, because acting in this is a bit more like stage acting. The moves have to be a little bit bigger. We've cast real good people, and those from American that we brought in are real employees, and we're not asking them to be actors. We're asking them to do what they do. You guys need to be having a little more fun. I mean, talking with your hands a little bit more. Oh, this house is just gorgeous. You ought to see it. And you look right over to them. Do you have anything to be carrying? You're going to need one as well. Okay, we'll go back and try it again.
The next day, the crew prepares to spend the day working among the general public in Terminal D.
trying to catch up with him.
This location presents some unique challenges to Director of Photography,
All right, so this
Cindy
is number
Erdman.
1. Let's check out number 2 real quick.
What makes it seem challenging is that it's a wide shot, and I'm battling not only a large area, but I also have a lot of hot windows that I have to balance for. So I have to bring up the light level inside this darkened area to match the light outside. Right now we're setting up the lighting, so I have to make sure that the lighting looks good for the shot, for the action that I think is going to happen. And then once I see the actual shot, because a lot of times the blocking will change a little bit, so I have to be ready for some little surprises here and there. So I have other fixtures standing by just in case. And then I also have to constantly scan the screen to make sure that there's nothing that's in the scene that will look bad on the screen later. So it's my job to kind of scan and make sure there's nothing in the frame that shouldn't be there.
Here in the beautiful Terminal A Rotunda in Miami, Ashman sets up a short scene which is later edited out of the final film.
Action!
Amy! Rachel! Meet Amy. We have so much to talk about.
Well, this is one of my favorites because it's fun and light, but in the grand scheme of things, there wasn't time, so it had to be edited out.
The cast and crew now moves to Dallas-Fort Worth and the American Airlines Flight Academy.
Are those yours?
No, they're for my daughter.
Oh, good. They sure are cute. May I take a look at those?
Sure.
Oh, wow. Where'd you get
The
these?
cabin simulators are used to train flight attendants and are authentic down to the smallest detail, except, of course, one whole wall is missing. A great place to put a big camera. The composition of shots for giant screen is very different than normal filming. The audience can see so much more detail, and you seldom shoot a real close-up like you would for television. It's different for the actors too. Larry Benson explains.
It's a very interesting process with the big screen. At the time you do it, everything that's going on, as in real life, is happening all around you. And so even when we're not talking, we still have to be reacting to what's going on.
35, green box. We've got an engine fire number 1, checklist. DFW Tower, American 60 Heavy, final 36 left. We have an engine fire number 1. We need crash fire rescue.
American 60 Heavy, DFW Tower, rolling crash fire equipment.
Number 1, off. Fire handle number 1, down. Bottles fired, says consider fuel down for below max landing weight. I'll notify the flight. Autopilot's off. Sure, we've got a fire number 1 engine. Prepare for possible ground evacuation. Looks like number 2 is spooled down. Okay, give me flaps 28, GPWS switch on. Coming over. Tower American 60 Heavy, just lost number 2 engine. We've got 1 or 2 are out. Have your ground guys watch Bulldog. We'll call you in there. 200 feet, on speed, sync 8.
American 1540, roll around. Company of the 11, short final emergency. American 640, change runway 36 right, clear to land.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Stand by for ground evacuation. Standing by.
The 3-engine MD-11 with 2 engines out is a handful. During final approach, an engine fire on the left side throws out debris, which is ingested into the center engine, causing it to fail. This simulator is so real that time spent here counts as actual flight time for pilots. Shooting this scene was difficult for the crew and the pilots. The light was low, and setting focus between the control panel and the runway projected on the screen was tricky. They set up the camera to eliminate the rolling bars that occur when a film camera shoots video or computer screens. Then, just about the time everything was set, the simulator had a maintenance problem. It took 2 days of shooting to get it right. The pilots had to actually fly the entire emergency sequence over and over. Altogether, 19 emergency landings were flown, and all landed safely. The tower responses were added later with the voice of a real FAA controller.
American 2240, turn out heading 080.
This is the tower at the DFW airport. And these are real controllers handling traffic during a very busy time for arrivals and departures. Controllers use both radar and their eyes to keep traffic flowing smoothly. The DFW tower is actually 2 towers, with a separate team of controllers for the east and the west side. The airport can be run from here or from satellite towers on the east and west sides, depending on visibility. Each airplane has a data strip, which is moved on these boards as the airplane moves around the airport. When this scene was shot, only 2 crew people were allowed in the tower at a time so as not to distract the controllers. Very early the next morning, the production team moves to the Dallas-Fort Worth ramp. The environment is noisy, hot, and can be dangerous. Being able to communicate directly with pilots, controllers, and ground crews by radio is a definite advantage for Director Ashman, who happens to be a licensed pilot.
As a filmmaker and a pilot, the tone of the voice and the language that you use lets them know immediately that you know what you're talking about. And that means that there's an instant rapport, and they're much more cooperative and willing to work with you on getting the shot you want.
One scene involves an ATR, a 767, 6 American employees, and a bicycle, all on the ramp. The shot calls for a 180-degree dolly move, but the ramp was too rough for a dolly and track would be seen. The shot moves too fast for a Steadicam operator to walk or even run. So Steadicam operator Jeff Mark modified an ordinary bicycle by removing one handlebar. Now he has the speed and the control to make the shot.
When you're shooting on the ramp, there's a lot of unique problems. First of all, you've got the noise situation, so everyone has to be on a headset. Second, you've got communication on multiple channels. You can't tie up radio channels talking to the tower using their frequency and talking to the airplanes and talking to the film crew. So I use two headsets simultaneously, one to the aircraft, and then I have the co-pilot talk to the tower. The other is to the my film crew to tell them where we're going and what we're doing. So it gets a little hairy, especially when you're moving people, airplanes, carts, all on a ramp simultaneously while they're trying to move 30 airplanes out on a big complex at DFW.
After the shot is completed, Ashman and his crew review the video assist.
Green's not my color.
Careful attention is paid to this small 5-inch monitor because the final film image will be about 1,000 times larger. This MD-11 was brought over from the hangar before its next flight to make this shot. To get the right perspective, the camera was placed on a lift, the nose of the plane to taxi right at the lens. Coordination with ground controllers was required again since the shot was made several times, and each time the MD-11 blocked access to several gates for a minute or so. To get the maximum dramatic effect, the film is shot just slightly under speed, which speeds up the action slightly when it's projected. It wouldn't be safe to come straight at the camera too fast. At the Alliance Airport in Texas, the crew set up for the opening shot, which called for a 757 to take off straight at the camera. But on the morning of the shoot, no 757s were available, so an MD-80 was substituted.
Well, ma'am, we're cleared up to Bridgeport. We're going to stay in the local area. We can take the clearance as filed, or you can just give us clearance. We're going to take off. Just do a closed pattern back for that landing.
We just did a takeoff with an MD-80, and what we had him do was a delayed takeoff, because normally those jets, when they go off, they lift up and climb very steeply quickly. Well, that would take him clear out of our frame, and it's not that exciting. So what we had him do was a delayed takeoff, and he stays very low and comes right over camera, clearing us by, 40, 50 feet. That sounds like it's really, really close, but for an airplane at high speed and very maneuverable with a lot of power like the MD-80 is, not a problem at all. And they were able to accomplish that, and we did several takes. It looks spectacular on screen. It looks like the airplane's coming right at you. And in fact it is, but it's very under control and quite safe.
3 water trucks spent over an hour getting the ramp wet outside the massive Alliance maintenance hangar. The wet ramp makes for great reflections and highlights.
Straight. Straight.
Cindy and Scott set up the camera for the plane to taxi over. The camera is set and started. The operator runs clear. The shot is too dangerous for a person to stay with the camera. Ashman talks the pilots through the turn by radio, since they can't see the $500,000 camera from the cockpit. Because the MD-80 sits lower than a 757, the radio antenna nearly clipped the camera as it went by.
Turn. Straight.
American's Operations Center, called System Operations Control, is in contact with every flight all over the world. The dispatchers work with the flight crews on flight plans, maintenance issues, weight and balance, and weather. They have radio links worldwide. When bad weather forces delays or aircraft to divert, this is where pilots call to alert the company as to their status and discuss the best options.
Is there any way you can do a somewhat quiet action on a bullhorn in the room, or do you want to go all hand signals? and you're going to make your way
One of the
down
roles
stairs.
of the assistant director is to block the action in the background of the scene.
The middle landing. Keep the ball rolling. That's a big part of my job. Is a lot of times everybody will just sort of look around and for no reason, and it'll be my job to sort of keep everybody's attention focused and keep the ball rolling. Sir, do you have a license to carry that? Yes. And I help to organize the shots, rough them in for the director.
Billy, come back to me
In the weather room across the hall from the SOC, the crew sets up to simulate a severe weather scene.
Okay, I'm not going to have you do that last move because you will become a 30-foot tall person. You might be doing
As work progresses, the drama becomes real. A tornado watch is issued, and a severe storm approaches DFW. These radar images did not have to be simulated. Now, it's real drama.
Act quickly. This is a dangerous storm situation.
Action.
Capturing an era that is decades old is no easy task, especially when authenticity is so important. Clothing, hairstyles, cars, and even signs have to be accurate for the time period.
The uniforms that are being used are each taken from the C.R. Smith Museum. We've been as authentic as possible, putting wardrobe on each individual American Airlines employee. So the scene, although it looks very authentic and very somewhat simple, had a lot of intricacies and challenges, which ended up coming across very well. So we were proud of that.
This building housed the original Stewardess College. Renovated, it's now a conference and training center. Finding the backdrop for the next historical scene was a little more difficult. The team had to search high and low for an airport that was frozen in time. The year 1952, the location, Opa-locka Airport, Miami, Florida.
Stay on an angle here for the blocking in the faces.
Yeah, we'll fix it.
And when I pop in for the closer one, we'll probably be just a little off more angle this way.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Here in an old hangar was the perfect office to show Americans' first attempt at the electronic age via the original Reservisor.
The Reservisor was the forerunner of Sabre, which is an automated reservation system. The machine itself, which was really a primitive computer, came from the American Airlines C.R. Smith Museum in Dallas.
This is the Magnetronic Reservisor.
Okay, hang on. I think I'm just going to work the blocking at the beginning.
The scene is rehearsed many times before shooting it in the hot Miami night. Again, authenticity was the watchword.
We needed to do research to make sure that we had something for 1952 because actually the trappings of an office changed a lot during the 50s, so something in late 50s wouldn't have worked. So we propped it out from desks, chairs, wall clocks, coat racks, everything down to the details of the pencil sharpeners and staplers.
With the office complete and the scene rehearsed, shooting began.
This is the Magnetronic Reservisor. This machine will be able to track every reservation.
You can actually hear the sound of the camera running in the background, which is of course a problem in shooting dialogue scenes. So what we did to fix it was put the camera outside the window and use the sound from that take.
That's right. Now hold it.
The cast and crew finished for the night in 95-degree weather.
Okay, everybody, cut. I love it. Print it. Wrap it.
Up until now, the production had been going very well. That would change when the crew got to New York City.
Okay.
Originally, a helicopter with a space cam mount similar to this one had been reserved for shooting aerials in New York. But 2 days before the shoot, the helicopter, the only one certified to use the only 70mm gyro-stabilized camera system in the world, canceled. A quick call to Imax in Toronto, Canada, brought a different camera and side mount, which were used on this Jet Ranger helicopter, a choice which drastically limited the variety of shots available, and because of weight and space, it restricted Director Ashman to waiting on the ground during shooting. As if that weren't enough, an approaching storm front meant gray skies, meaning daytime shots would be dull and lifeless. It was time for Plan B.
And we'll see just how far forward we can look, because I was looking a lot of forward looking. Also looking down, how far down can we look and come slowly?
Not too much.
Yeah, I know the limitations are
Yeah.
absurd at this point. Yeah. So we'll just have to find what we can get.
Brooklyn Bridge, you're going to have to fly from Manhattan to Brooklyn. Yeah. Always going to have, and probably the shot is to go Manhattan side to Brooklyn side, looking back this way and allowing the tip of the island to come in.
Flying this way. Flying down the river.
Well, here's the
The budget did not allow for waiting for better weather, so the solution was to shoot at dusk or night, when the color of the sky didn't matter so much. London, where bad weather was expected, to everyone's surprise and delight, skies were clear and sunny. A side mount was again used since the new Space Cam had not yet been certified for use in England. But the larger twin-engine A-Star helicopter allowed the director to fly on the mission. During the day, they filmed castles and countryside.
Which way is the Tower Bridge? Tower Bridge is just see the brown building. Yeah.
Meanwhile, on a crowded London street, bus drivers were briefed for the Tower Bridge shot. 2 double-decker buses are booked to make sure that at least one bus is on the bridge for each helicopter pass during the rush hour traffic. What should be an easy beauty shot of Parliament is made difficult by large construction cranes right across the street from Big Ben. The cameraman must attempt to keep Big Ben in the shot and the construction cranes out. They need about 8 seconds without cranes for the film. From London, it's back to Miami and then on to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Atop Corcovado, the mountain with the famous statue of Christ the Redeemer, a rare, fierce storm blew in from the east. The crew scrambles for cover, and filming the wide shot of the city skyline has to be postponed.
Okay, here we go.
By day 2, things have settled down a bit, and the beach scene is ready to be shot. In Rio, volleyball is not played as you might suspect. Here they use everything but their hands, much like soccer. The shot proves to be very entertaining. In Rio, the normal beachwear is not exactly G-rated, so additional shorts and cover-ups were required for some of the talent.
Now I'm getting a stop for the sky, and it should be a little hotter than the rest of it, so why don't we roll one more like this?
All right, let's go ahead and roll.
4 a.m. the next morning, the crew is back atop Corcovado to try again for a dramatic shot of sunrise over the famous Sugarloaf Mountain and the city of Rio de Janeiro. Day 3, driving to the top of a 2,400-foot cliff on a road that was nearly washed out by the storm 2 days before.
The camera has to be very close for us because we have to be one center of gravity. This is why the passenger is here, so the camera should be very close to us, but not in the middle.
The hang glider sequence was the most dangerous shot attempted. This hang glider is built for 2 people, so it could carry the weight of the iWork 70mm camera. But the pilot, who usually runs with the passenger for the takeoff, now has to lift all the weight by himself. Any miscalculation could be disastrous, as this paraglider found out. He wasn't hurt, but seeing him crash just before liftoff did not instill confidence.
It's going to take off the king ladder.
Now it was time to see if it would work. During the takeoff, the camera accidentally flips backwards, changing the weight and balance and surprising the pilot. Fortunately, he recovers. Colorado Springs, Colorado, the rendezvous point for the Learjet and the DC-6. DC-6 Captain Terry Nord, Learjet pilot Jeff Sr., and Director Ashman lay out the plan.
Yeah, we'll just get over.
Just take off and go.
Yeah, we'll start getting out in this area, and the further this way we get, these are the lowlands out here. This is where I think a lot of your stuff's going to be. I'd say we start coming down out here.
The 757 and the MD-80 pilots are briefed by telephone.
Just keep going across this way.
American's chief pilot, Captain Cecil Ewell, flies the 757, and Captain Spike Dayton flies the MD-80 for the formation flight. The location is the high Sierras west and north of Pikes Peak. The DC-6 flies at about 220 knots, a reasonable speed for the jets, which are lightly loaded. It's important that the planes are flying fast enough not to have to use their flaps, which would not look good for the shot, and the extra speed also gives them better maneuverability for the formation flight. Following the formation work, the DC-6 and Learjet returned to Colorado Springs, ready to set out the next day for more flying scenes. The approach and departure scenes were shot at Hays, Kansas. A low-flying DC-6 and Learjet, flying in formation, got the attention of quite a few townfolk, who gathered at the airport to see what was going on. The next day began with the dawn departure from Dallas Love Field and a series of shots primarily with the Lear's nose camera. After every 3 minutes running the camera, the crew had to land, reload the nose camera, and take off. Many of the flying shots in the film came from this one-day aerial mission, which went from Dallas to Chicago and all the way back to California, with lots of stops in between. There are a number of great shots in the film from two other aerial missions flown by Scott Patterson and Clay Lacey in their Learjet. Location shooting is complete, and the editing process begins.
All we have is the Avid, and we wanted to show this step.
Editor Mark Maisonneuve and assistant editor Dave Schweitzer. are working in the video editing room at Multi-Image under the supervision of Director Ashman for the first phase of post-production. These scenes are sequenced and cut to length. The entire film is first cut on video. Executive producer Mike Gunn and advertising agency president Dennis McLean review the film with Ashman and suggest changes, which are made in the video version.
Oh, there we go.
With the script revised and the final scenes approved, a print of the film is cut to match the video. This is called the work print. The negative has not yet been touched.
We took these daily prints and we conformed the print, tape spliced, according to the key numbers that came out of the edit list, and screened those, screened them with sound, made changes.
Up until now, all editorial work has been done on video. The team views their edited work on the big screen for the first time.
Yeah, I think that's
Lightning bolt works real well.
Yeah, it does.
I like the way that turned out.
Yeah, that's the 35 blow up.
Yeah.
The team will return many times to this screening room at iWorks in Burbank to view the film prints and check the soundtrack.
1, 2, 3, 4.
In the meantime, the soundtrack has been composed and recorded with full orchestra. Written by Stan Beard and Roger Strader, the music was recorded months earlier. The opening vocal was recorded by Wayne Nelson of Little River Band fame, and the finale recorded by Michael Bolton at his Connecticut studio. All the vocals are recorded weeks after the orchestra is done, and finally all mixed from 48 track masters to 12 channels for the film master. The narration with James Garner is recorded in Los Angeles, with all the pieces, including sound effects synchronized on 32 separate digital channels. The final mix to 6-channel stereo is done here, in this specially equipped mixing room at Interlock Studios in Hollywood.
Then we'll have some plain ambience, like the planes outside from in a garage.
David Alvinia, who assembled and edited the soundtrack, and audio engineer Lee Carroll supervised the mix as Ashman looks on. The mix takes about 12 hours. The soundboard is automated so that each adjustment is remembered until all the elements are just right, coming from 40 channels into 6.
And here comes an engine.
The work print has been edited to what should be its final form and is ready to be screened with sound one last time. The original negative is now cut to match the edited work print. Once the negative is cut, it's not easy to change, so great care is taken to make sure every scene is right. The film is now complete, ready for its premiere. The crew has moved on to its next project, but for all involved, the spirit of American will live on for many years.